They said it was impossible. Stop. Rewind history. Find the moment where the smartest person in the room said with absolute certainty, "It can't be done." Now, play it forward and watch what happens next. Subscribe to the Invent IQ, because this channel is dedicated to the rebels, the dreamers, and the stubborn minds who played that tape forward and changed everything. Hit that button and join us. Today, we're uncovering 5 times humanity was told no and answered with a discovery that rewrote the rules. Impossible is a powerful word. It stops funding. It kills projects. It silences ideas. But once in a generation, it meets its match. Not just intelligence, but a specific kind of obsession. The kind that looks at a fundamental law of the universe and asks a dangerous, beautiful question. What if we're wrong? 1. The Wright Brothers, teaching metal to fly. Let's start in the sky. For centuries, human flight was the domain of myth and tragedy. Even after the Montgolfier brothers' hot air balloons, controlled, powered flight was considered a scientific dead end. Eminent physicists calculated the power-to-weight ratios and declared it a fantasy. The great inventor Lord Kelvin himself stated it was impossible. The problem was control. Balloons drifted. Early gliders crashed. The sky was a chaotic, unforgiving place. Enter Wilbur and Orville, bicycle mechanics from Dayton, Ohio. Their workshop wasn't in a university lab. It was filled with gears, chains, and a deep understanding of balance. They obsessed over birds, not just their wings, but how they twisted and turned. Their genius wasn't the engine, it was 3-axis control. They invented a system to warp the wings, to create drag on one side and lift on the other. They were giving a machine the instinct of a bird. For years, they tested gliders at Kitty Hawk, a remote, windy strip of sand. They failed, crashed, and recalculated. The scientific community largely ignored them. Then, on a cold December morning in 1903, with a homemade engine bolted to their latest design, Orville took the controls. The flight lasted 12 seconds. It covered 120 feet, less than the length of a modern passenger plane. But in those 12 seconds, the entire concept of impossible was left behind in the sand. They didn't just build a plane. They built a doorway to a new dimension of human experience. 2. Alexander Graham Bell, the wire that carried a soul. Now, let's travel through a wire. Before 1876, if you wanted to speak to someone far away, you wrote a letter. The telegraph was a revolution, but it was a code. Dots and dashes. The human voice, its warmth, its emotion, its immediate meaning, was trapped by biology. Sending it through a metal wire? Pure alchemy. Alexander Graham Bell wasn't trying to start a communication revolution. He was a teacher for the deaf, obsessed with the mechanics of sound and speech. He was trying to build a device to make sound visible for his students. In the process, he stumbled upon the principle of the telephone, converting sound waves into electrical impulses. His famous first words to his assistant, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you," weren't planned. They were a panicked shout of success. The real story of impossibility here is in the reaction. Bell offered his patent to Western Union, the telegraph giant, for $100,000. Their internal evaluation was brutal. They called it a scientific toy with no commercial value. They saw a niche gadget. They failed to see the end of distance. They failed to see that Bell hadn't just invented a device. He had invented a new layer of human intimacy. He proved that the most profound connection could be carried on something as simple as a vibrating piece of metal and a wire. 3. Robert Goddard, the lonely prophet of space. Our next story starts not with a public failure, but with public humiliation. Robert Goddard, a quiet American physicist, published a paper in 1919 suggesting that rockets could be used to reach high altitudes, and maybe even the moon. The press seized on it. They called him the Moon Man. An editorial in the New York Times mocked him, authoritatively stating that a rocket could not work in the vacuum of space because, famously, it would have nothing to push against. This wasn't just criticism, it was a public shaming dressed up as science. Crushed, Goddard did something extraordinary. He retreated. He took his funding and moved to a remote farm in Massachusetts. For decades, he worked in near-total secrecy. His neighbors thought he was a mad scientist. His rockets were small, noisy, and often blew up. But in 1926, on that frozen farm, his first liquid-fueled rocket lifted off. It was a modest machine. It flew for 2.5 seconds and landed in a cabbage field 41 feet away. That hop was the Apollo program in miniature. Goddard proved the principle in silence. He patented key ideas like multi-stage rockets and gyroscopic guidance, ideas that would become the blueprint for spaceflight. He died in 1945, largely unrecognized. The New York Times printed its retraction in 1969 as Apollo 11 headed to the moon. Goddard's story is the ultimate proof that impossible is often just the consensus of the uninformed. True vision doesn't need an audience. It just needs to be proven. 4. The laser, light that didn't know its job yet. Not every impossible idea is met with loud laughter. Sometimes it's met with a polite, confused silence. When Theodore Maiman demonstrated the first working laser in 1960, the reaction wasn't "you're wrong." It was, "Okay, but why?" It was a solution in search of a problem. A beam of perfectly coherent, single-color light. Beautiful physics, but a commercial enigma. They called it a parlor trick. But here's the magic of foundational invention. It creates its own necessity. The laser didn't solve an existing problem. It revealed new ones we didn't even know we had. Its pure, focused light became a perfect scalpel for surgeons. Its ability to carry information became the backbone of the internet through fiber optics. It reads barcodes, levels construction sites, creates holograms, and measures cosmic distances. The laser taught us a critical lesson. The greatest inventions aren't just answers. They are new, fundamental questions written in light. 5. Tim Berners-Lee, the architect of everywhere. Our final story starts with a simple annoyance. In the late 1980s, at CERN, the massive European physics lab, information was a mess. Data was trapped on different computers in different formats in different departments. A British scientist named Tim Berners-Lee was frustrated. He didn't set out to connect the world. He just wanted his colleagues to be able to easily share their research. His genius was a set of simple, elegant protocols: HTML to format documents, HTTP to transfer them, and URLs to give everything an address. He built the first browser and server. And then, in a decision that may be the most generous act in technological history, he gave it all away. For free. No patent. No company. He released the World Wide Web into the public domain. Think about that. He didn't just invent a tool. He invented a commons. A global library, marketplace, and town square that anyone could build upon. He proved that the most powerful invention isn't always a physical object. It can be a set of ideas, a protocol for connection. He was told, implicitly, that such a chaotic, open system was unworkable, impractical. Today, it is the very nervous system of our civilization. He saw the impossible network, and then he built the rules that made it inevitable. Look at the pattern. In every case, impossible was a wall built from the bricks of current knowledge. The Wrights saw a control problem, not a physics problem. Bell saw sound as data, not magic. Goddard understood action and reaction in a vacuum his critics couldn't conceive. The laser's inventors saw ordered light, not just a brighter bulb. Berners-Lee saw connection, not chaos. These people weren't superhuman. They were persistently, stubbornly human. They shared one trait. They separated the laws of nature from the limitations of current thinking. They respected the first and utterly ignored the second. The next great leap, the one that will solve climate change, cure a disease, or take us to the stars, is sitting in someone's mind right now. And someone, somewhere, is probably telling them it's impossible. This is why we built this channel, to fuel that stubborn, beautiful, world-changing curiosity. If you want to be part of this journey, to explore the history of innovation and discover the breakthroughs of tomorrow, you belong here. Don't just watch history. Be part of the conversation that shapes what's next. Subscribe to At the Invent IQ right now. Hit that button. It's your way of saying you believe in the power of the next big idea. And tap the bell icon, because we're just getting started, and we don't want you to miss a single story of how the impossible becomes real. Tell us below, what impossible idea do you believe in? What should we explore next? Your curiosity drives this channel forward. Thank you for watching. Remember, the future isn't written by the people who say no. It's built by those who quietly, stubbornly start building. See you in the next video.